It is a major summer shakeup, and I'm not talking about the Raptors. In Ottawa, the Trudeau government has signaled a head start on next year's election. Have a look.
As Minister of Border Security and Organized Crime Reduction.
The Prime Minister is tapping his top people to manage hot-button issues, including border control and international trade. The Globe and Mail's Laura Stone is joining me now. So, Laura, let's start with Jim Carr, who is now the Minister of International Trade Diversification. What does that mean? And what's the message that the Prime Minister wants to get across?
Good morning, Anne-Marie. Well, certainly the title alone, trade diversification, shows that the government is concerned about the uncertainty that the Canada-U.S. relationship is bringing. We still don't have a NAFTA deal. It's unclear when the discussions will resume this summer and whether a deal will even be possible before the 2019 election. So Prime Minister Trudeau has brought in Jim Carr, who was the former Natural Resources Minister, who proved himself to be a competent and strong performer in that file. He did a three-way switch with Sohi, who becomes the Natural Resources Minister, and his infrastructure portfolio goes to François-Philippe Champagne, who is seen as more of a salesman, someone who can hand out the big bucks before the next election. But this is one of the key themes of this cabinet shovel: trade diversification, along with federal-provincial relations, and of course preparing that cabinet for the 2019 election by adding new ministers, including 3 from the Greater Toronto Area, which is seen as a key battleground.
All right, one of those is Bill Blair, former chief of police in the city of Toronto, largest police force in the country. I was watching this yesterday, the announcements come out, and Bill Blair not only has border security, he also still has cannabis, and then he also has guns and gangs and crime, organized crime. So that's a huge portfolio. It's a lot to cover off on.
It's true. It's a very interesting addition to the cabinet to put Bill Blair in, and I think this happened for a couple of reasons. One, he's, of course, the former police chief of Toronto, Toronto's top cop, and so he has those public safety credentials that the Trudeau government is looking for. Also, he's going to be dealing with the provinces and municipalities on this irregular migration issue, including Ontario Premier Doug Ford, who he has a very controversial history with back when he was police chief, and during that time when Rob Ford was mayor, and that video of him smoking crack cocaine was seen. Bill Blair said that he was disappointed by this. Doug Ford was very angered by it, and apparently is still upset by it. So they'll be dealing on this file together. And so I think this shows that the Trudeau government is concerned with the irregular migration issue, and they want to bring in someone who has these public safety credentials to deal with the provinces.
Quick question, though, Laura. If the immigration minister is still in place, but Bill Blair is picking up border security, how are those two going to intersect? Because the immigration laws aren't necessarily changing.
No, exactly. And the way Trudeau described it yesterday is that this is kind of an intersecting file that deals with both public safety and immigration. I suppose it was seen as probably too much for the immigration minister to deal with, as he has lots of other things on the immigration beat. And so this, by putting Bill Blair there, he is sending a message that the government is taking it seriously and that he's going to be dealing with this specific issue of border security. He also proved himself on the pot file. He was the government's point man on marijuana. And so putting him there to deal with the border issue, it also makes sense because there's going to be lots of questions about marijuana and border security.
He's got a lot on his plate. Dominic LeBlanc also has new duties. He's the Intergovernmental Affairs, Northern Affairs, and Internal Trade. Basically, it's his job to make sure all the premiers get along, which is tricky right now. Lots of internal squabbling in the country.
Exactly. A big new post for Dominic LeBlanc, who's actually one of Prime Minister Trudeau's oldest friends, and Trudeau actually had that file himself and handed it over to Dominic LeBlanc, who yesterday said he was going to try to play nice with the provinces. He said he thinks that the federal government has more in common with Doug Ford than they don't. But certainly his job is going to be pushing forward the Trudeau government agenda, which includes a national carbon tax system, which Premier Ford and Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe and Jason Kenney in Alberta, if he wins the premiership, have said that they're going to actually fight in court. So this is a key role for Dominic LeBlanc. Federal-provincial relations have shifted significantly since Trudeau's win in 2015, and so he's put someone that he trusts, someone with a lot of political savvy into the role. Deputy Conservative leader Lisa Raitt yesterday called Dominic LeBlanc a Tory whisperer, which he said was a bit of a compliment. Someone who can kind of sweet talk a little bit and is able to deal with all these conflicting voices on the provincial scene.
Also the person who's going to have to take all of the heat as we go forward. Laura Stone, good to talk to you from Ottawa today.
Thank you.